Thank you all for joining this Quimbee presentation called Global Return to Work Post-Pandemic, How a Multinational Employer Can Reintegrate Employees into Employer Work Sites Worldwide. I'm Don Dowling. I'll give you a little background just so you have the context of where I'm coming from here. I'm a shareholder at Littler, which is the biggest worldwide employment law boutique law firm. And my practice personally is cross-border or international labor and employment law, advising multinational companies, usually those headquartered in the U.S. And today, I think I'll probably be assuming for most of our comments that the multinational is headquartered in the U.S., although the comments we'll say today would apply to a multinational headquartered in Japan or Europe or any Australia, anywhere else. But then I advise on matters that of employment matters that affect the multinational worldwide or in their operations in other countries, usually multiple countries at the same time. So I'm explaining that as background because today we're talking about a specific context of that, which would be a multinational company whose headquarters is saying, hey, we've been getting through this pandemic since March of 2020, but now it's we're emerging. It's maybe switching to an endemic instead of a pandemic, but we're trying to get life back to some semblance of what it was pre-pandemic, and let's reintegrate our employees into our work sites worldwide. As opposed to a local company in Argentina or a local company in Mexico or Belgium, or pick a country, you might have local companies that want to bring their workers back in just one country, and that would be a discussion unto itself. If it were Mexico, it would be under Mexican law. If it were Belgium, it would be under Belgian law. But today, we're talking about project managing a multinational that wants to reintegrate employees across its work sites worldwide. And worldwide depends on the footprint of the company. It might just be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 countries, or it might be dozens of countries. So with that, here's kind of a roadmap or a table of contents for what I want to address today. One is going to be, we'll call it part A, is global post-pandemic return to work initiatives, the context and the challenge. And then part B, the next part, is the legal risk worldwide around post-pandemic return to work initiatives. And then the final part C, which will be very short but important because we're leading up to it, is multinational strategies for a global post-pandemic return to work initiative. Now, first, let me take a minute to explain what I mean by a return to work initiative. I mean a company, a multinational again, because we already talked about that is asking its employees worldwide across operations in more than one country, we talked about that, to come back to the office or the work site more than they used to. So, I mean, that I guess sounds obvious, but what that leaves out would be a couple things. One would be the scenario of a company that's stopping off office work entirely and is saying we're global, work from home. We're not going to have anybody come to any offices anymore. That sounds pretty extreme, but there were media reports that Airbnb might be an example of a company that announced something close to that. So if a company announcing we're not going to have anybody go back to any work site, they would not have a post-pandemic return to work initiative, because they would be having a post-pandemic don't return to work permanent work from home initiative, which would, and we'll probably mention that scenario a couple times, but I assume that's a rare scenario, and it's more usual that companies are pushing to get people back to work sites than they were before. Then I guess another example of a company that might be a multinational but would not have a return to work initiative would be one that is inherently all work site based and never had people working from home. I guess an example of that would be a restaurant, right? Obviously, if it's a big enough restaurant chain, there'd be management, and the management people might have worked from home during the pandemic. But let's take a small restaurant where everybody has to go to the restaurant to work. There's no work from home because you got to be sitting in the restaurant to cook the food and serve the food. They would not have a return to work initiative because everybody's been at work. Even either they closed down during the pandemic or they operated somehow during the pandemic with people at the work site, but people were always going to the work site. So you're not asking people who have been working from home for maybe 2 years to come in. So we're putting those two extremes aside and looking at everybody else in the middle who is trying to get people to return back to work. But now let me just disclose that one thing I probably won't be able to go in today, because it's not really my place. I'm a lawyer talking about the legal issues around a post-pandemic return to work initiative. So by the initiative, I mean your company is going to decide for business reasons that grow out of your business needs of to what extent you want people to return back to the workplace, at least some of the time. You might want everybody to come back all the time. No more work from home. That's over. That was the pandemic, but now everybody's coming back. That might be one model. Another might be, let's go to the 2 or 3 day a week model. That's a, that one's emerging as kind of a popular option when companies are finding out that it's hard to get people to come back to the workplace full time.